Okay. So we'll go ahead and get started here. Thank you for everybody for coming to the live stream here. We are today going to be talking about turning your individual wins into team systems. This is for AI related things. So one of the things that happens, with what happens with Octavius here and the Assist platform is that we talk to a lot of CXOs at companies and we hear a lot of things. One of the big things that we hear pretty consistently is how teams are building with agents. They're building applications using Claude, using Claude Code, Codex, OpenAI, other things like that. And what they're running into is problems around how to operationalize it in the company. So what that ends up looking like is a bunch of skill files and a bunch of documents that end up kind of being trapped on people's computers instead of in the cloud system. So we're going to talk just about that today. What you're going to learn today is three big things. These are kind of things that we've come across while talking in meeting with companies. First thing that you're going to learn is, how you should start thinking about your team structure in this world of AI. So it's a big one and a hot topic. I was actually talking to somebody about this yesterday. We're going to also talk about how to avoid the hero employee trap. So this is something that we'll talk about. I'd love people's takes on this as we go through it. So the third one is, how to amplify what's working. So that's going to be the big thing. So these are the three things that we'll go over during the conversation today. So real quick on who I am. So I'm Jenny, the founder and the creator of the Assist platform. We talked a little bit about Assist earlier, but I'll talk about Assist later in the presentation. But I'm a software engineer. I've been writing code since I was 14 years old and 27 now. So if you do some math, that tells you my age. I was the former VP of engineering at Outer, so I've built and run engineering teams. I ran a really high stakes security team at a company called SBox, where I managed the custody and everything else for a cryptocurrency exchange. Very high stakes, very secure environment. And then I've been working with AI since 2014, so been around the space for a while. When I started playing with AI originally back in 2014, nobody really cared about it. It's kind of funny because I actually met the OpenAI guys at the NIPS conference, I think in 2013 to 2014 or something like that. And nobody cared who they were. Everybody was talking about how amazing uh, DeepMind was at the time. But oh, have times changed. So that's who I am here. Just starting with the basics and thinking about, how you should start thinking about your teams. So we're going to talk through a few things here to kind of go through this. First thing is team structure. So if you think about the pre-AI world, right? Team structure was a pyramid. So you have the CEO at the top, you have your VPs, you'd have your middle managers, you'd have your ICs, and then maybe have a couple other layers of management in here. One person, one manager can maybe manage, four, five, six people, 10 people if they're an absolute beast. But most of the times people are managing, four, five, maybe six people, and you have kind of a layer of managers and the individual contributors. Now, the job of the CXOs in these companies historically has been to try to figure out like how do you get the skills into the organization that you need. So, do you need a sales manager and some sales ICs? So you think about how do you get that in? You work with HR to make that happen. Or how do I improve my design capability? So you figure that out as well. But the thing with AI is AI can really fill pretty much any skill gap if you know how to use it. So what you can do is you can take a look at like a sales development rep, for example, and maybe they're like 75% of kind of what you need them to be. With AI, you can actually almost like, kind of like the Iron Man suit, give that person superpowers and fill a gap with AI. Just the key is just knowing how to actually do that. So really what you want to start thinking about, instead of thinking about your teams in this pyramid structure, these type of things. What you're going to want to start thinking about is how do you get ICs to have the skills kind of beneath them that are being augmented by AI. And the skills can be thought about almost as a team. So the way to think about it is, let's say I have a team here, and rather than traditionally in kind of a management structure like we saw before, where a manager has some ICs they manage, in this structure, you have the IC, which has a couple of agents that they manage. So it kind of it almost makes the manager into an IC. So just little hints on where we're going, but that gives you an idea. So how does that look with the AI world? You have your sales rep here, maybe the sales development rep. And before, the rep was really a relationship expert and a products expert, right? But in the AI world, really what you can do is you can take those two skills that are missing, say the email writing and the call script writing, and you can supplement those skills with AI in a way that you couldn't do before. So you fill the gap. If you can remember what I went back to here, you have that SDR, that's 75% there. And what you do is you fill that missing gap, and that's what you're doing with AI and agents here. So your org structure, you just got to kind of think about it differently. That's the key, right? Before you may have been thinking about your org structure in terms of, how do I just get people to use AI? That's definitely a good step to take. But the more advanced step is how do I get people to augment their skills with AI? And that ends up being a pretty big challenge and something that ends up taking quite a bit of time to actually do. So the first big win, how you do this is I'll give you like three recommendations on how to actually accomplish this. The first thing we want to really be thinking about is how do you get employees to fill their own gaps using AI? Because it's really kind of hard for you to sit over their shoulder and force them to do this. So what you want to do is you want to help them kind of fill their own gaps here. So one of the things that I recommend people do is hold a hackathon. So in the software development world, there's these things called hackathons that you do where you take a big block of time, usually it's like 24 hours or 2 days or a week. And the goal is over the course of that time period to take some ambitious projects like build an application or a business or something. And you try to just accomplish it during that little bit of time. And the idea is you just give people an idea and some capabilities and let them kind of experiment in a kind of focused environment. With some should you have some kind of proctors and some folks that are walking around and helping out. If you guys have ever watched, I have two kids and we watched that show on Netflix called "Is It Cake" quite a bit. Yeah, this is kind of like that. The "Is It Cake" episodes are basically hackathons where the participants are required to come up with some crazy cake idea, like make a cake that looks like a suitcase or something. And they have to do that within, a 2 or 3 or 4 hour period. And there's a lot of time pressure, but you have to really be innovative. You really have to think things through. And hackathons are a good way of doing that. So the big thing I recommend people do is hold a hackathon with your team. So what you do is you want to carve out a chunk of team. I'd say, 20 or so people, and you're going to carve out, a day. I wouldn't say do longer than a day because a day is enough time to kind of take away from work and give them a super ambitious project. So the key is make the project super ambitious. You want something where the only way to accomplish it is to actually use AI. So you should be able to, do something basic. It should be, we can talk about this in a second, but you want to pick something that's really, really complicated, really, really hard to do, not something one person could do on their own, something that maybe a team of 50 people would be needed to do before. So that's one thing that you can use to do that hackathon concept. The second thing is cross-pollination. So this is going to be kind of a wild and radical idea, but one thing that you want to do is you actually want to turn off use of the AI apps. If people have Claude on their desktop or ChatGPT or whatever on their desktop, turn it off and force them to interact through Slack. And the reason why you do that is because in Slack, people can see what other people are doing with AI. So if I message something, I message things in our Slack channel all the time, and the team will actually see it and go, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know I could do it that way. That's the kind of pollination that you want. You want people to kind of see what the capabilities are. So use Slack, use, Claude in Slack or chat in Slack, or if you're on the dev side, use Codex and Cursor in Slack, these kind of things in Slack to help people cross-pollinate ideas. That's a big one. The other thing that you can do to help with this is, oh, by the way, Slack is just one. You can also set up Teams. Microsoft Teams is another great way of doing this. So the last thing to really focus on doing is setting up a boot camp. So this is kind of like a hackathon similar, but really what you need to do if you're serious about applying AI in your organization is spending the time and the money on training, right? What you want to do is you want to train your team and you want to teach them how to think. So I'm not talking about copying and pasting prompts here. I'm talking about how to take a problem, break it down, think about the key elements, and then apply the problem in a world in a situation that makes sense with these tools. Because really, all AI does is amplify. We'll talk about that later. But what you want to do is you want to kind of Yeah, find somebody that can either do the training, shoot me an email after, and I can point you in a direction, some folks that can help with training. But really what you want to be thinking about this as is this is almost like it's very critical. It's almost like you're trying to acquire skills within your team. Again, the way to think about it is if you needed to hire a data scientist before, you would go and you'd spend a lot of money hiring a data scientist. You'd task your HR team to do it. You'd spend the money on marketing the job rec out there. You'd kind of really push hard on making it happen. But really, what you want to focus on doing here is finding a way to actually make the investments in this process, which means that you have to think about it as skills acquisition. Because once you train your team on how to do it, you'll be in the golden land. So an example of this is I mentioned the data scientist earlier. The question to ask is, could you take a really strong analytical-minded person and then augment them with AI to get you to 80 or 90% of the capability of a data scientist, right? That is much better than trying to go outside of your organization, find somebody, bring them in, train them, all of that kind of stuff. So that system went well. We're going to take a couple minutes here to do a quick little activity, and I'll go on mute here while we do this. And the idea here is, if you remember the hackathon idea, we're doing a mini version of that where I want you to just brainstorm, take out, a piece of paper and, a tool of your choice and brainstorm 100 hackathon activities to do with your organization. So these are the types of tasks and macro goals that you want people to do. Example of this would be, uh, you want your team to build and execute a marketing video, a TikTok marketing campaign where you do 10,000 videos, and you have to do that in a day. Obviously very difficult to do on one person, but completely possible to do with AI. So what you want to do is like kind of brainstorm some ideas like that. I'm going to shut up now, give you guys a couple of minutes to brainstorm ideas, and I'll come back in a second. All right, I'm back. So that's what we have for the first activity here. Now let's move on. The next big topic is avoiding the hero employee trap. This kind of sounds, kind of ominous. This kind of sounds a little kind of, you know, interesting. Uh, maybe maybe a little clickbaity, but I kind of wrote it that way. So anyway, the employee hero trap is very simple. Remember that AI can fill skills gaps in employees. This is how you should be thinking about it, right? So if you're an SDR, 75% of the capabilities that you need that person to have, you can augment the 25% with AI, right? The problem is you run into this hero employee scenario, right? Where this is, the perfect example of this is, weirdly enough, Iron Man. I love Iron Man, but it's a weird example of a hero employee scenario. Iron Man kind of starts off as this smart guy, uh, you know, he's not, particularly a good person or whatever, but he gets trapped in the cave. He builds this kind of Iron Man suit, which gives him superpowers and greatly amplifies his skills and his capabilities. And then, in the second Iron, I think it's the second or third Iron Man movie, I can't remember which one it is. The U.S. government's saying, "Hey, we need the Iron Man suit from you because it's too powerful to have in the hands of one person." And this is the famous scene right here where Tony Stark is saying, I'd privatize world peace, because he's basically saying, like, it's my property. I could do what I want with it, right? One of the things that you have to be kind of careful of, within companies is creating hero employees because some people really take to AI. I'm the kind of person who does that. I know a handful of people that do. And if you look at the usage inside of companies, it follows a power law distribution where there's a few people who really take to it and kind of push way ahead of the pack. And then there's a long tail of people who are still trying to figure out how to actually do it, right? The issue is the people who take to it can build a weird org structure under them, right? So if you think about it conceptually, agents can almost be this new employee type. So if you have this org structure here where you have, your stakeholders, say maybe the board, if you're in the C-suites, or if you're a VP, you have the CEO, or if you're a director or whatever, you have the VPs, right? You have some stakeholders you report to, and then there's you, and then there's like an IC, a hero IC that you have. And what happens when the hero IC has a legion of agents? Like I mentioned before in the hackathon example, you can generate 10,000 videos over the course of a couple of weeks with AI, right? Like these things are achievable, which means that you have a lot of hands, you have a lot of capabilities, and somebody who can unlock that is extraordinarily valuable. But the big drawback is that the data and the information on what that person does can get locked in that person on their machine. So if they're using co-work, they could be running skills locally. They can be running automations. They can have tools locally. They can have their kind of daily updates that they construct. All of this stuff can be local, which is a drawback if you need to operationalize that in the organization, right? So you just have to be careful of this and cognizant of it. I would encourage you to encourage people to be hero employees, but just in the back of your mind, be thinking, okay, well, if I come up with a hero employee, what do I do? Luckily, we asked. So the three things I would say to do, and this is, the more broad thing here is just move the AI use into systems, right? So the first thing to do, I would say, is empower and elevate the heroes. So if you find a hero, I guarantee you know who they are. If you don't know who they are, you have chat or Claude or whatever, you can just pull up the leaderboards and you can see who's actually using AI the most. Those people are your heroes. Take those heroes and elevate them and empower them, right? What you want to do is you want to get them out of the day to day, and you want to help them work with other people in the organization on how to use AI, because clearly they figured something out on how to make it work within your company. Right. So that's really step number one. It's going to be hard to do because these people are going to be performing. What you don't want is one person that performs really well and carries the team. That's not good for the system. You want the whole system to operate functionally and effectively. So what you do is you got to take this person, pull them out of the team, elevate them, help them operate across your departments, across all the other people that you deal with. That's one thing you want to do. The second thing to do is when you want to find a way to move your assets into employee or to a company-owned systems. So as I mentioned before, if a hero employee is using Claude Code or something locally and has built this really beautiful analytics kind of capability on their local machine using a bunch of skills and connectors and all of this stuff, that's wonderful, right? But you want to move that stuff up into some kind of system that's company owned. So if, heaven forbid, your hero and that's he decides to leave or gets hit by a truck or wins the lottery and decides to go, hey, I'm out of here and move to Bermuda or whatever, you're in a good scenario where you're not completely kind of having your business go grind to a halt, because guess what? You didn't just lose one person, you lost that one hero and their legion of agents under them. So you want to kind of avoid that scenario. So the way you do it is if you guys are working in Claude Code, if you're a development organization or something like that, make sure the skills are checked into your repositories. Make sure your Claude MD files are checked in. Make sure your agent.md files are checked in. These type of things. Make sure you're having people document what they're doing. Documentation is really easy these days because you can have an AI do it. You have that stuff documented. You have it pushed to Slack. Maybe build a tool that pushes this to Slack automatically. These kind of things. If you want ideas to brainstorm here on this, shoot me a message after. Happy to kind of talk to you about different ways of doing that. The third thing you can do to solve this hero employee problem and not to kind of step in this trap here is to pair. So this is something that comes from the software engineering world. As I mentioned, I'm an engineer and working, developing software for 20 plus years. One of the things that software engineering teams do in order to share information across the team is they pair program. So you don't have one person working on one thing in isolation. You have two people working on something, right? And it's kind of a weird concept. And you might think, man, why do I want to basically cut my organization in half, right? I'll tell you this. Maybe you cut your organization in half by in terms of the number of tasks that people could do by having two people work on one task. But the amplification you get from that is going to be 10x. So two people working on one task, 10x amplification, you still win. So what you want to be thinking about is how you do that kind of thing. The way to do it is pairing is very easy. 1 day a week is a good way to start. 2 days a week, you have people sit together at the same desk on the same computer. This is really weird, and it's kind of a weird concept, but you don't want people pair programming on different computers because people start kind of going off, looking at Twitter and doing all kind of weird stuff. What you want people to do is to be on the same computer, passing the laptop back and forth, passing the keyboard back and forth, talking, thinking through. And what you're doing there is you're taking your heroes and you're replicating them throughout the entire organization by pairing. So if you just took your heroes and you had them replicate and you had them pair, you know, even like 20 or 30% of the time with your team will significantly improve the way that they're using AI because the heroes will figure it out. All you're doing is helping them kind of spread the information. So that's system two. So here's a little activity. We're going to write down your heroes are and then the first 5 people to pair them with. So this is a great activity to do. Just pull out a piece of paper, and you probably know a couple of heroes off the top of your head. If you have to open up your admin panel on Claude or whatever, or on chat or whatever it is, go ahead and do that, and or on Assist if you use Assist. Um, and you can actually see kind of who your heroes are, and then take a look and invite those people down, and then think to yourself, huh, who are the next tier? So like, who are the next tier of people that aren't super resistant to AI, but will adopt it if they kind of knew exactly what the use cases were and how to apply this technology, and then get those people unified and set up and going about doing what they need to do. So write these down, write the heroes down, and write down the first 5 people. And we're going to take a quick little break here while you do that, and we'll be back in a second. Okay, we are back here with activity two. Hopefully, you had some great stuff there. If you did something that you're particularly proud of in terms of some people in your team, just go ahead and shoot an email out to them and say, hey, I'm going to connect you up with XYZ person next week. I want you to sit down with them and kind of work as a pair. And if you need somebody to help kind of, guide through this process, feel free to reach out to me. I can point you in the right direction. I can give you some ideas. I just love talking about AI. So no strings attached, nothing weird there. I don't do AI training. I'm not a trainer. We sell the Assist platform. That's what we do. But I'm happy to kind of help you get AI in your organization because I think it's pretty important. So reach out to them. All right. So amplify what's working. This is the last big prong here that we're going to go through. Now, this is a big one. So it's such a big one. I'm just gonna like try to slow down a little bit here and just try to re-emphasize this. One of the things I see the most from talking to companies is people think about AI as something from the outside in. So what they think is, in their mind, I have this broken process. I have, I don't, I need something that I'm fuzzy about done, something like that. And then they try to task AI with doing it. This does not work. So I have this really funny quote here where people will say something like, this process doesn't work, but this time it's different. By the way, anytime you say this time it's different, I think you pretty much shoot yourself in the foot. I mean, you pretty much know that it's not different this time. So anytime you have to say that, it's just a signal that it's probably not different. But people will say this time it's different because AI. So what you want to be thinking about instead of outside in, meaning, you could be kind of saying, hey, AI, you know, design a marketing campaign for me. That is, Great. It's going to give you something. It's going to be, it's going to look good, all kind of stuff. That's not how you do it. The quality that you get from that is going to be minimal because what you need to do is you need to go from the inside out. So what you have to do is you have to think and spend time getting to the core of what you need and then go out from there. You can use AI to extend. You can use AI to blow things out and to amplify things, kind of like the Iron Man suit or like that hero employee. Um, but it's really hard to get good quality stuff when you're going from the outside in. So, for example, this entire presentation and this whole workshop I wrote on my own over the last few days. So it represents my point of view on how AI should be applied. I could have gave this whole thing to Claude and it would have gave me something. That would have been Claude's POV. That would have been content, and I could have published it, and I could have, jumped on here and talked about it, but it wouldn't have been as good as I think this is, right? And, maybe you don't think it's good, but I think it's good. So that's how you know it's for me, which is great. So the key is just to focus on the core, like as I said. Ask yourself a question. So rather than saying something like, this process doesn't work, now it's going to be different because of AI, ask yourself, how can we develop a process that works and amplify it using AI? There's a typo there. Should be we. How can we develop a process that works and amplify it with AI? That's what you want to be asking yourself. Uh, Going back to the marketing campaign example, you want to talk to AI about who your ICP is. What kind of things do they do? Well, how big is their family? This is a great example, but you can do this kind of thing. What kind of like sites do they visit? What are these things that they do? Like all of it, you just kind of work with it to just understand and contextualize what you're trying to do. You build a core, you build a POV of what you need, and then you say, okay, now let's design a marketing campaign, and you blow it out. That's how you do it, right? The big thing when it comes to automation and agents specifically that I try to make sure people do, and remember, normally in the previous examples, every one of these went slides had three things. I cut it down to one because I want you to be very, very focused here. You want to start with something manual first and then automate. So when you're working on an AI process, go through the process by hand a few times and then you focus on automate. You don't just say, "Hey, automate my, video ad campaign marketing strategy and execute it." That's not what it'll do. Like, you're gonna get really bad results that way. It's not gonna have a POV. It's not gonna represent your business. What you do is you spend time. You log into Higgsfield. You generate some videos. You understand what the prompts do. You understand kind of how things are assembled, how the pieces go together, these type of things. And then once you have that figured out, then you automate it. And by the way, this is what engineers do all the time. And it's actually something that's so frequent that it's called Flintstone. That's why I have a picture of Flintstone here, where you have this car that's the Fred Flintstone car from the show The Flintstones, and Flintstone is has this thing. It looks like a car, but it's really driven by feet power on the ground there. Because what you want to do is you want to do it manually, and then you just replace in the car example, you just replace the feet with the motor. Once you figure out all the other pieces, right? That's how you do automation. So you want to focus on that. So here's the third activity, right? I want you to write down a process that currently is working within your organization, and then write down a list of some people who manage it or who are directly involved in it, right? And then what we're going to do after write all this stuff down is we're going to actually reach out to those people, and you're going to spend some time doing a mini hackathon on how you can automate it and how you can use AI to apply to that process. You want to blow that process out. You want to go outside in and find some process that doesn't exist and try to apply AI to it. You don't want to do that. Well, you can do that once you're super advanced, like once you understand how everything works, you can do that. But if you're just getting started, take something that works that you know about and then apply AI to it. Right. So that's what we're going to do. So just real quick in this activity, let's just take a moment. We'll do 5 minutes here, and you can just write down, as I said, a process that works, and write down the handful of people that you're going to have to reach out to actually go ahead and chat with them about this. And I'll be back in 5 minutes. Okay, and we're back now. So the last little bit here is just a quick note on Assist. I just want to talk to you guys about the Assist platform and kind of what we do. The big thing that Assist focus on is we help you take a deployment of adding agents and building applications for internal workflows, those type of things. We take this whole process and we condense it down to you so that you can actually deliver things relatively quickly within your company without trying to figure out how to hire the right people or put the right teams together, all of that kind of stuff. So we condense this deployment process. So here's like an example of something we've done recently. Before Assist, one of our clients was they had like this ERP that they were using. They had all these different kind of messy spreadsheets. They had kind of a bunch of Excel, documents to kind of fill the holes in this ERP system because the ERP system only really solved around 80% of the problem. And what they were able to do within the Assist platform is identify the key parts of their system that actually ended up needing to kind of be tailored specifically to the workflow, and then they just replaced them. So what they were able to do is they were able to go department by department, identify the different modules within their ERP, and then build completely bespoke applications using Assist that were completely governed by the Assist platform governs governments and permission systems. And these were all non-technical people that actually were able to do this. And it was a really great result because what ended up happening is they were able to reduce their ERP spend by 2/3. Just how this kind of works, give me an idea of kind of what type of thing usually happens here. What ends up happening is on a deployment, the assist team, what we'll do is we'll spend, the cycle takes about 3 or 4 months to kind of go end to end. But what ends up happening relatively quickly is once you get set up, we deploy an engineer. This is an AI engineer that's a legitimate software engineer into your organization. They sit in sites with your team. They sit in your strategy meetings. They sit in your update meetings. They kind of embed themselves into your organization to understand exactly how it works. And this is a really critical piece because what the engineer can do then is they could shape and mold the Assist platform to make sure that it works for your company. It can help you get kickstarted relatively quickly using AI. And then what happens after that is within the first few weeks, we're able to deploy an agent. So because the person's sitting in your company, knows what's happening, they deploy bespoke agent within a couple weeks. This agent could be a web development agent, like for example, like as the company I saw you showed you before. This could be a sales SDR. This could be a call center agent. This could be different types of agents depending on whatever your organization needs. And that deployment, the agent can be deployed extraordinarily fast, so that your company can start to get to value quickly. And then what happens after that is, we'll go through the process of helping your team understand how these agents are constructed, how the Assist platform can actually help internally, how to wire in the connections to your ERP, to your Salesforce, your CRM, or your warehouse management systems, or whatever crazy spreadsheets that you may have. We get everything set up and centralized so we can make things happen, and then we hand it off to your team with some really great training, so that your team now has the capability to operate using AI. So really what we're able to do is like transform you from an organization that didn't really have AI capability to an organization that has some capabilities to execute with AI. You're not going to be an open AI researcher, but you'll be far ahead of the pack, far ahead of your competitors over the course of these 3 or 4 months. And we've seen this be extraordinarily successful. If you want to, talk more about this, and this is something that's interesting to you, you can set up a discovery call with myself here. This is a QR code. If you haven't seen it before, you could just take out your one trusty cell phone, open up the camera app right now. I'm going to do it on myself, and if you kind of scan it and you hit the button that comes up, it will actually open up a application for you. You can also shoot me an email at jimmy@octaviuslabs.com. We'll put it in the notes after, and you can go from there. So that really concludes everything here. And I hope you guys really enjoyed this live stream. This was, our first live stream. So I think it's the first time we've done this before. And I'm hoping that this will be one of many. So if you have any feedback, don't leave it in the chat. No, leave it in the chat. That's fine. Or shoot me a note, and then we could. I'm happy to kind of talk to you about stuff. If you have questions, if you just want a chat, a kind of no strings attached conversation about AI, I just love talking about it. I love helping people figure out how to do this stuff internally. You may be too small for our engagements. I don't care about that. I'll still talk to you. I still talk to your team. I do this kind of thing all the time. So just reach out. Let me know, if you want to chat, and we'll go from there. But again, thank you so much for the time and ta-da.